suffocatingly surrounded at the same time. Tall glass buildings reflected each other endlessly, crowds moved like rivers with no clear source, and somewhere in the middle of all that noise, Eli Carter was eating a cold sandwich on a park bench, checking his bank balance for the third time that morning. The number hadn't changed, it was still embarrassingly small. Eli was 24, creative, quietly funny, and perpetually broke. He'd moved to Hartwell 2 years ago chasing a graphic design career that hadn't quite arrived yet. He freelanced when he could, picked up cafe shifts when he couldn't, and told himself every
I
Sunday
appreciate
night
you
that
meeting
this
me.
week would be different.
There's something
It
we need
never
to
really
discuss.
was.
It's
He
important.
was scrolling through a gig board on his phone, the kind of website that listed everything from dog walking to furniture assembly.
So,
when
the
he
key
stopped on a
variables are all
post that made
interconnected.
him read it
This model
twice.
explains the primary outcomes.
Looking
Let's
for
review the
a
next phase.
convincing, presentable, emotionally intelligent person to act as my boyfriend at a family gathering. 2 weeks, paid
You know,
well,
these quiet
discretion
evenings are the
required,
best.
serious
Just tea and
inquiries
good company.
only.
Wouldn't trade it.
Eli stared at it, then he looked at his bank balance again. He sent an inquiry. The response came within an hour, which told Eli 2 things. Whoever this person was, they were serious, and they were desperate. The meeting was arranged at a
Welcome
quiet
home, my
coffee
dears.
shop in the upscale
It's so
Meridian
good to see
district.
you. We've
The kind
missed
of
this.
neighborhood where the lattes had names Eli couldn't pronounce and the chairs cost more than his monthly rent. He arrived early, chose a corner seat, and smoothed out his jacket 3 times before the door opened. Walked in like someone who had been taught from birth that every room belonged to him and had spent his entire adult life trying to forget that lesson. He was tall, with dark hair that curled slightly at the edges like it refused
And then
to
he
be
actually
fully
tripped over the
controlled.
garden
He
hose.
wore a
No
charcoal
way.
blazer
You're
over a
making that up.
simple white
I
shirt,
swear.
and there was something in his eyes, dark brown, careful, quietly exhausted, that made Eli feel like he was looking at someone carrying a weight they'd stopped mentioning to anyone. Noah spotted him immediately, sat down without ceremony.
It's good to be
Eli,
out here.
That's
It is
me.
so peaceful.
Noah studied
Just
him
what
for
we
a
needed.
moment, not rudely, but thoroughly, the way someone looks at a contract before signing. You don't look like what I expected, Noah said. What did you expect? Someone more performative. Eli tilted his head.
Here's the sketch
Is
of the
that a
lake.
good thing or a bad thing?
I see. The reflections on the
Something
water are so
flickered at the
detailed.
corner of Noah's
Thank you.
mouth, not quite a smile, almost. It's a good thing, he said. I need someone real, not a performance. Noah explained the situation over 2 cups of coffee that Eli was too nervous to properly taste. His family, specifically his father, Richard Whitfield, founder of Whitfield Capital, had been pressuring Noah for years about his personal life. Richard was the kind of man who believed a son's relationship status
This is just
was a
lovely,
reflection
isn't
of
it?
his stability,
It is.
his
A perfect morning.
seriousness, his
Couldn't agree
worthiness
more.
of eventually inheriting the family business. Noah had come out to his family 3 years ago, and while his mother had quietly accepted it, his father had never fully processed it, cycling between awkward attempts at normalcy and subtle, cutting remarks about Noah finding someone suitable. The upcoming event was a 2-week
Listen,
family
this is
retreat at the
important.
Whitfield
We need to
estate,
talk about what
relatives
happened.
flying in from
I
across
can't
the
keep this to
country,
myself any
formal
longer.
dinners, casual brunches, a tradition that had been running for 20 years. Noah had made the mistake 6 months ago of mentioning to his mother that he was seeing someone. It had been a deflection, a small lie to end a difficult conversation. Now his mother was excitedly expecting to meet this person. I can't show up alone, Noah said. My father will spend the entire 2 weeks reminding me in front of everyone that I'm 30 years old and still haven't figured out my life. I just need someone to exist beside me convincingly for 2 weeks, deflect the pressure, then we go our separate ways. Eli listened carefully, and you picked a stranger off a gig board. I tried asking a friend first, Noah said flatly. It got complicated. Eli didn't ask how. What does paid well mean exactly? Eli asked instead. Noah named a number. Eli kept his face neutral. Inside, his brain was doing calculations that ended with that's 4 months of rent. I have some conditions, Eli said. Noah raised an eyebrow. You're in a position to have conditions. Everyone's in a position to have conditions, Eli said calmly. That's how agreements work. Another almost smile. Go ahead. I want to know enough about you to be convincing. I don't do well with improvising when I don't have information. I'll need a week before the retreat to learn the basics, your history, your family dynamics, what your supposed relationship with me looks like. I want a clear end date with the understanding that I walk away cleanly, and I want half the payment up front. Noah looked at him for a long moment.
I appreciate you
You've
meeting
thought
me.
about this, he said.
There's something
I
we need
thought
to
about it on
discuss.
the walk
It's
over,
important.
Eli said. I'm a quick thinker when money's involved. This time, Noah actually smiled. It was brief, like sunlight
So, the
through a
key
cloud
variables are all
there and gone
interconnected.
before you
This
could
model
fully
explains the
appreciate
primary
it. But
outcomes.
Eli
Let's review
noticed
the
it,
next phase.
filed it away somewhere without meaning to. Agreed, Noah said and extended his hand. Eli shook it.
These
Deal was
quiet
made.
evenings are the best.
The week before
Just
the
tea and good
retreat was
company.
supposed to be
Wouldn't trade it.
practical, informational, a business exchange. It didn't feel entirely like that. They met 3 times at Noah's apartment, a clean, beautifully designed space that felt somehow lonely, the way very organized places sometimes do, like everything was in its right place but nothing was lived in.
Welcome home,
Noah
my
walked
dears.
Eli through the family
It's
tree, the
so
history,
good to
the
see you.
dynamics.
We've missed
His mother
this.
Alina was warm and observant. She'll notice inconsistencies, so don't volunteer too much. His aunt Patricia was a gossip who meant well. His cousin James was protective of Noah in a quiet, watchful way. And his father, Richard, was the gravitational center of everything, brilliant, demanding, and carrying 20 years of unexpressed expectations. In return, Noah asked about Eli, where he was from, what he did, what he cared about.
And
This
then
is
he actually
research,
tripped over
Noah
the
said
garden
when
hose.
Eli pointed
No
it out.
way.
I
You're
need
making
to
that
know
up.
your
I
details
swear.
too, they'll ask. Right, Eli said. But the conversations kept drifting past research. Noah asked about Eli's design work and then actually looked at his portfolio, really looked, with the focused attention of
It's
someone who understood
good to
visual
be out
language. He
It
asked
is, so
follow-up
peaceful.
questions. He
Just what
remembered
we needed.
details from the first session and referenced them in the second. Eli caught himself on the third evening sitting on Noah's couch with a cup of tea he hadn't asked for but that Noah had made without asking, talking about his hometown in a
Here's the
way he
sketch of the
hadn't
lake.
talked about it to anyone
I
in
see.
2
The
years.
reflections on the water are so detailed.
You miss it, Noah observed.
Thank you.
Sometimes Eli said, "It's just Hartwell is a lot. It takes something from you every day and you're supposed to be grateful for the opportunity." Noah was quiet for a moment. "I know exactly what you mean," he said. And somehow, coming from someone who lived in a building with a doorman and took taxis everywhere, it didn't sound hollow, it sounded like a confession. The Whitfield estate was 3 hours
This is just
outside
lovely,
the city,
isn't it?
set against a
It
lake
is.
that
A
caught
perfect
the evening
morning.
light like a
Couldn't agree
mirror
more.
held up to the sky. When the car turned through the iron gates and the main house came into view, stone and ivy and old money made permanent, Eli felt something shift in his chest. Nervous, Noah asked from the seat beside him. "A little," Eli admitted. "Don't be," Noah said, then after a pause, "or be nervous, just don't show it."
Listen, this is important.
Eli laughed
We need to talk
despite
about what
himself.
happened.
That's
I
either
can't keep this to
terrible
myself any
advice or a
longer.
very condensed life philosophy. Probably both, Noah said quietly. And then Alina Whitfield was on the front steps, arms open, face bright with a warmth that was completely genuine. And she looked at Eli with such open, unguarded happiness that something in his chest did a small, complicated thing. "This is Eli," she said, taking his hands in both of hers. "Noah told us so little I was starting to think he'd invented you." "Still not entirely ruled out," Eli said with a smile. Alina laughed. Behind her in the doorway, Richard Whitfield stood with a glass of something amber, studying Eli with the measured expression of a man who had spent a lifetime making assessments. He nodded once, said welcome. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't hostile. Eli took it as a beginning. That night, in the room they'd been given, one room, one bed, which Noah had warned him about and which Eli had agreed to because 2 weeks and it was fine, it was professional. Eli lay awake listening to Noah breathe in the darkness. The deal was simple: 2 weeks, walk away cleanly. He told himself he remembered that. By the 3rd day, Eli had stopped thinking of it as a performance. That was the problem. The Whitfield family retreat had its own rhythm: mornings by the lake, afternoons of tennis or sailing or long wandering walks through the estate grounds, evenings of formal dinners that gradually softened into late-night conversations around the fireplace. Eli had expected it to feel like an endurance test. Instead, it felt
I
like
appreciate
being led
you
into
meeting me.
something he hadn't known he wanted
There's
access
something we
to.
need to discuss.
And at the
It's
center
important.
of it was Noah, who, it turned out, was a completely different person here than he had been in the city. Not fake, released.
So, the key
like
variables are
distance
all
from his
interconnected.
office and his
This model
routines
explains
had
the
loosened
primary
something he
outcomes.
kept
Let's
tightly
review the
bound
next
in
phase.
regular life. He laughed more easily. He argued cheerfully with his cousin James about everything from football to philosophy.
These
Sat with
quiet
his mother
evenings
in
are
the
the
garden
best.
for long
Just
stretches,
tea and good
talking in
company.
low voices,
Wouldn't trade
his
it.
face open in a way Eli had not yet seen. And he touched Eli, casually, constantly, the way people in relationships do without thinking, a hand at the small of his back when they entered a room. fingers brushing his arm to get his attention. Once,
Welcome
sitting
home, my
beside each
dears.
other at dinner,
It's
his
so
knee
good to
resting
see
against
you.
Eli's
We've missed
under the
this.
table, steady and warm like an anchor. Every time it happened, Eli reminded himself, this is the job. Every time, the reminder landed a little softer. James figured it out on day 4, not the fake part, but something else. He caught Eli alone by the lake in the early morning, when the mist was still sitting on the water and the estate was quiet. You actually like him, James said, sitting down beside
And then
Eli
he actually
without
tripped
asking.
over the garden hose.
Eli looked
No
sideways
way.
at him.
You're making that
He's my
up. I
boyfriend.
swear.
That's not what I mean, James said. I mean you actually like him, the way you watch him when he doesn't know you're watching. He paused. I've known Noah my whole life. I've met the people he dates. They don't look at him the way you do.
It's
Eli
good
was
to be out
quiet
here.
for a moment.
It
The
is,
lake held the
so
morning
peaceful.
light gently.
just what we needed.
He's easy to like, Eli said finally, which was true and which was also the most honest thing he'd said all week. James studied him for a moment longer, then nodded slowly. He's also very good at not letting people close,
Here's the sketch of the
he said.
lake.
Took him years
I
to
see,
really
the
let me
reflections
in.
on the water are
Whatever
so
you're
detailed.
doing, don't give
Thank
up on
you.
him too quickly. He's worth the patience. Eli wanted to say, it's not like that, it's temporary, I'm leaving in 11 days. He said none of it, just looked back at the lake where the mist was beginning to lift and let the words settle somewhere he couldn't easily examine. The moment that changed everything happened on day 6, and it was so quiet Eli almost missed it. It was past midnight. Everyone had gone
This
to
is
bed.
just lovely,
Eli
isn't
had come
it?
downstairs
It
for
is.
water and
A
found
perfect
Noah
morning.
standing at the
Couldn't
large
agree
glass
more.
doors that opened onto the back terrace, looking out at the lake in the dark. He hadn't heard Eli come in. For a long moment, Eli just watched him, the stillness of him, the way he stood with one hand pressed flat against the glass like he was steadying himself. Noah. Noah turned. There was something raw in his face that he didn't have time to put away before Eli saw it.
Listen, this is
Sorry,
important.
Noah said,
We need to talk
couldn't
about
sleep.
what happened. I
Eli
can't keep this to
crossed
myself
the
any
room
longer.
and stood beside him. Outside, the lake was dark silver under a half moon. The night was completely still. You okay? Eli asked. Noah was quiet for so long that Eli thought he wasn't going to answer. My father talked to me tonight, Noah said finally. After dinner, when everyone else had gone up, he said he stopped, started again. He said he could see that I was happy, that you seemed like a good person, that maybe he'd been wrong to make things harder than they needed to be. Noah's jaw was tight. 23 years of trying to earn something from him, and it took one dinner with a stranger for him to finally. His voice broke very slightly on the last word. Eli didn't think. He reached out and covered Noah's hand with his own, the one still pressed against the glass, and held it. Noah went very still. I'm sorry, Eli said softly, that's a lot to carry. I don't know if it makes it better or worse, Noah said, that the person who finally made him see me isn't even really, he stopped himself. The unfinished sentence sat between them. Isn't even really mine. Eli's heart did something slow and seismic. He didn't let go of Noah's hand. Noah didn't pull away. They stood there in the dark and the quiet beside each other, looking out at the water, and something shifted between them, not dramatically, not with a declaration, but like two tectonic plates quietly, irreversibly moving closer together. They kissed for the first time on day 8. It wasn't planned, it wasn't staged for the family. It happened in the small library off the main hallway where Eli had retreated to sketch and Noah had followed.
appreciate
which
you
had been
meeting me.
happening more and more. Noah
There's something
finding
we
him,
need to discuss.
seeking
It's
him out
important.
not for appearances but simply because. Eli was showing Noah a sketch he'd done of the lake. Noah was leaning
So,
over
the
his
key
shoulder
variables are all
close, and
interconnected.
Eli turned
This
to
model
say
explains the
something
primary
and found their
outcomes.
faces
Let's review
6
the next
inches
phase.
apart. The space between them lasted about 2 heartbeats. Then Noah closed it. The kiss was gentle.
You know, these quiet
questioning,
evenings are the
And when they
best.
pulled back,
Just tea
Noah's
and good
eyes
company.
were open and
Wouldn't trade it.
searching, looking for something in Eli's face. Eli answered the question by kissing him again. It was longer this time, warmer. Noah's hand came up to Eli's jaw, careful and deliberate, like something precious being held. Eli's sketchbook
Welcome
slid off
home,
his
my
knee
dears.
onto the floor, and
It's
neither
so
of
good
them
to see you.
noticed.
We've missed this.
When they separated, the room was very quiet. That wasn't Noah started. No, Eli agreed, it wasn't. Noah looked at him steadily. Eli, I need you to tell me what's happening. I think, Eli said with the careful honesty of someone stepping onto uncertain ground, that I stopped pretending somewhere around day 3. Maybe day 2, I'm not entirely sure. Something in Noah's expression cracked
And then he
open,
actually
relief
tripped over
and
the
fear
garden
arriving
hose.
at exactly
No way.
the same
You're
moment.
making that up. I
This
swear.
complicates things, Noah said. Yes, Eli said. Significantly. Yes. Noah looked at him for another long moment. Then he picked up the sketchbook from the floor, set it on the table, and held out his hand.
Good to be out here.
Eli took it.
It is. So
Nothing was
peaceful.
resolved,
Just what we
everything was
needed.
more complicated. 6 days remained. But his hand was warm, and for right now that was enough. The last 6 days of the retreat were the most disorienting of Eli's life. Because now everything was real,
Here's the sketch
and
of the
nothing
lake.
had been renegotiated.
I see. The reflections on
He
the
was
water are
still
so detailed.
technically a paid
Thank you.
companion. The contract hadn't changed. The end date hadn't changed. In 6 days, they would return to Hartwell, and Eli would receive the second half of his payment, and the agreement would be complete. But Noah held his hand during dinner, and sought him out in the mornings, and laughed at things Eli said with the full, unguarded laugh of someone who wasn't performing anything for anyone. And at night, in the quiet of their shared room, they talked
This
really
is just
talk,
lovely,
the
isn't
way
it?
people do when
It
they
is.
stopped
A perfect
managing the
morning.
impression they're
Couldn't agree
making.
more.
Noah talked about the years after coming out, the careful negotiations with his father, the exhausting performance of stable and successful he'd maintained to prove that being gay hadn't broken him in any way his father feared, the loneliness of it, the way he'd started to mistake self-sufficiency for not needing anyone. Eli
Listen, this is
talked about his
important.
own
We need to talk
quieter
about what
loneliness, the
I can't keep
particular
this to
ache of
myself
being
any longer.
creative in a world that valued productivity, of feeling just slightly out of sync with everyone around him, of coming to a city that promised everything and delivering it at a price that kept going up. They found each other in those conversations, the real versions underneath the versions they showed the world. And Eli fell, completely, helplessly, and with the specific terror of someone who knows exactly what's happening and can't stop it. On the second to last night, Eleanor found Eli in the garden. She was a perceptive woman. Eli had understood that from the first day, and she had the particular gift of making you feel seen without making you feel exposed. "I want to tell you something," she said, sitting beside him on the garden bench with the ease of someone who felt comfortable everywhere. As someone who loves Noah very much and has watched him keep people at a careful distance for a very long time. Eli waited. "The way he is with you," she said, "is the way he was as a little boy before he learned to protect himself." She paused, choosing her words. "Whatever happened between you, whatever the shape of it at the beginning, what I see now is real, from both of you." She looked at him directly. "Don't let the beginning of something determine its ending." Eli was quiet for a moment. "Did Noah tell you?" he started. "Noah tells me very little," Eleanor said with a gentle smile. "But I'm his mother. I've been reading him since before he had words." She stood, smoothed her jacket. "I just wanted you to know what I see." She went back inside.
I appreciate you
The
meeting
garden
me.
was quiet around Eli,
There's something
full
we
of
need
the
to
sound
discuss.
of insects and
It's
the
important.
distant, steady presence of the lake. He sat there for a long time, holding her words the way you hold something both fragile
So
and
the
heavy.
key variables are all
The last
interconnected.
morning
This model
arrived
explains
with
the
the
primary
particular
outcomes.
cruelty of
Let's review the
endings
next
that come
phase.
too soon. The family said their goodbyes, Eleanor with genuine warmth and a long hug for Eli that made his throat tight. James with a
These
handshake
quiet
that
evenings
turned
are the
into a half
best.
embrace and a look
Just
that
tea
said,
and
"I
good
see
company.
you. Don't mess
Wouldn't
this
trade
up."
it.
Patricia with enthusiastic promises about the next gathering, Richard with, and this was the part that hit hardest, a hand on Eli's shoulder and a quiet gruff, "Good to meet you, son." A word he hadn't chosen, that had slipped out, that Richard didn't take back. In the
Welcome
car back
home,
to
my dears.
Hartwell, they were quiet
It's
for
so
the
good to
first
see
hour.
you. We've missed
The
this.
city appeared on the horizon, gray and glittering and indifferent, and Eli watched it grow larger and felt the 2 weeks beginning to close behind him like water closing over a stone. "Eli," Noah said finally. "I know," Eli said. "I haven't said anything yet." "I know what you're going to say," Eli said. His voice was steady. He'd been preparing for this. "The agreement is over. We go back to our separate lives."
And
What
then he
happened at the
actually tripped
estate
over the
stays
garden
at the
hose.
estate.
No
It
way.
got
You're making that
complicated,
up.
but we're
I
adults.
swear.
We understand what it was. Silence. Then Noah said very quietly, "That's not what I was going to say." Eli turned to look at him. Noah was watching the road, his hands on the wheel, his
It's
jaw set with the
good to be out
expression
here.
of someone forcing
It is.
themselves
So
to do
peaceful.
something that
Just
doesn't
what we
come
needed.
easily. "What I was going to say," Noah said, "is that I don't want to pay you the second half." Eli stared at him. Because if I pay you the second half, Noah said, then this was a transaction, and what happened at that estate was not a transaction.
Here's the
he
sketch of the
exhaled.
lake.
So I'd like
I
to not
see, the
pay you,
reflections
which
on the
means I
water are
owe
so
you an
detailed.
apology because that
Thank
wasn't the
you.
agreement. But I also need you to understand that I can't hand you an envelope and shake your hand right now because that would mean he started again. It would mean none of it was real. The city was close now. The skyline was sharp against the gray sky. Noah, Eli said carefully. I know it's not fair to change the terms, Noah said. I know that was your. Noah, Eli said, his name like a hand on his shoulder. Stop. I don't want the second half either.
This is just lovely,
Silence.
isn't it?
Yeah,
It
Noah
is
said
a
very
perfect
quietly.
morning. Couldn't agree
I
more.
stopped doing the job on day 3, Eli said. Maybe day 2, I told you that. He paused. Whatever's been happening since then, that's been mine, not contracted. Noah was quiet for a long time. The city wrapped around them, traffic and noise and the ordinary chaos of a Tuesday afternoon in Hartwell. He took
Listen,
the
this is
exit
important.
toward
We
Eli's
need to talk about
neighborhood
what
instead
happened.
of his own.
I can't keep this to
I
myself
don't
any
entirely
longer.
know how to do this, Noah said. Real relationships, I've been behind glass for a long time. I know, Eli said. I noticed the glass. That doesn't bother you. I'm a patient person when it matters, Eli said. And you're worth the patience. He paused, registering where those words had come from, the echo of James on the morning lake, and smiled at the coincidence or maybe the non-coincidence of it. Noah pulled up in front of Eli's building, put the car in park, turned to look at him fully for the first time since the drive began. Up close in the ordinary afternoon light, without the estate and the family and the backdrop of performance and beauty, he looked like himself, tired and careful and quietly, cautiously hopping. Eli thought, I have been watching this person fall into something real the same way I have for 2 weeks. I have watched him choose honesty over safety again and again when it counted. He thought, this is not how I expected to find something like this. He thought, it's exactly how it should have happened. Can I take you to dinner? Noah asked. Not as part of anything, not for any reason except that I want to, he paused, and I'd like to meet you properly without an agenda. Eli considered this. Tomorrow, he said, tonight I have a cafe shift. Noah blinked, then laughed, surprised and genuine, the full laugh that Eli had cataloged and kept like something valuable. Tomorrow, he agreed. Eli got out of the car, turned back, one hand
I
on the
appreciate
door.
you meeting me.
For what it's worth,
There's
he
something
said,
we need
I
to
think you
discuss.
already know me,
It's
and I
important.
think I already know you, he paused, but dinner sounds good. He closed the door, walked to his building. Didn't look back,
So, the
not
key
because he
variables
was
are all
being dramatic,
interconnected.
but because
This model
he knew
explains
with
the
the
primary
quiet
outcomes.
certainty of
Let's
someone
review
who
the
has
next
stopped
phase.
pretending that Noah was watching him go, and that tomorrow would come, and that what came after that was something neither of them could fully
You know,
plan,
these quiet
and that was
evenings are the
exactly
best.
right.
Just tea and good
Spring had
company.
arrived in
Wouldn't trade it.
Hartwell the way it always did, suddenly, aggressively, as if the city had remembered at the last minute. Eli's design work was picking up. He'd landed 2 steady clients, moved to a slightly larger apartment, still modest, but with a
Welcome
window
home,
that
my
caught
dears.
the afternoon light
It's so
beautifully,
good to see you.
and had
We've
mostly
missed
stopped
this.
checking his bank balance with the anxious frequency of the previous year. On a Saturday morning, he was at Noah's kitchen table, a familiar place now, lived in ways it hadn't been when he'd first visited, working on a project while Noah made breakfast. The apartment had changed. Small things, a few of Eli's prints on the walls, a second set of keys on the hook by the door, a coffee mug that was definitively Eli's and lived in its own specific spot. Noah set a plate beside
And
his
then he
laptop
actually
without
tripped over the
interrupting
garden
him,
hose.
just
No
placed
way.
it there
You're making that
quietly
up.
and went
I
back to the
swear.
stove. Eli looked up. Noah was moving around the kitchen in the unhurried way of someone comfortable in their space and in their life in a way that hadn't been visible when they'd first met. The careful exhaustion was still
It's
there
good
sometimes,
to
would
be out here.
probably always be
It
there,
is.
part
So
of who he
peaceful.
was, but it
Just what
sat
we
differently
needed.
now. Lighter. Your mother texted me, Eli said. Of course she did, Noah said without looking up from the eggs. She wants to know if we're coming to the August retreat. Noah was quiet for a moment.
Here's the sketch
then
of the
are
lake. I
Eli
see, the
looked at
reflections
him.
on the water are
Noah
so
had
detailed.
turned now,
Thank you.
spatula in hand, and was watching Eli with the open, waiting expression that still occasionally caught Eli off guard, the expression of someone who had learned, slowly and with effort, to want things without hiding it. Obviously yes, Eli said. The almost smile became a real one, full and warm and everything the first glimpse of it had promised. Obviously, Noah agreed and turned back to the eggs. Eli looked at the
This is
apartment,
just
the
lovely,
prints, the
isn't it?
mug, the keys,
It
the
is.
ordinary
A
Saturday
perfect
morning
morning.
spreading itself
Couldn't
out
agree
around
more.
them, and felt something so quiet and complete that it didn't have a dramatic name. It was just this. Just the specific weight of a life that had turned out better than planned because of a cold sandwich and a bad bank balance and an ad on a gig board that he'd answered half joking and half desperate. He picked up his coffee, got back to work.